Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that literally affects the daily lives of billions of us. By synthesizing decades of rigorous research from the National Institutes of Health and the Mayo Clinic, we really wanted to finally answer the ultimate question. Is our daily coffee habit actually a healthy choice, or is it just a harmful vice? We absolutely have to start right here, because, let's be honest, so many of us carry this lingering sense of guilt about our morning brew. We treat it like a guilty pleasure, or maybe a crutch. And hey, we're definitely not alone in this. Over 60% of Americans drink coffee every single day, with the average person putting away about 3 cups. We rely on it to wake up, to focus, and to somehow power through that afternoon slump. But for years, we've all had this nagging whisper in the back of our minds, asking if all this caffeine is secretly doing us harm. Well, looking at the data, the answer completely surprised me. So get this. The crucial point is 3 to 5 cups per day is not a vice. According to large-scale prospective cohort studies that followed literally millions of participants worldwide, 3 to 5 cups a day is actually the optimal amount associated with reduced overall mortality and increased longevity. Let that sink in for a second. The very thing you might be feeling guilty about is statistically linked to a longer, healthier life. So here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the ultimate coffee verdict, explore how it acts as a shield against major diseases, and peek under the hood at the biological mechanisms. Then we'll read the fine print on additives and brewing methods before wrapping up with the risks and safe limits. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the ultimate coffee verdict, a real paradigm shift in health. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration recently released a final rule that officially validates coffee as a healthy beverage, provided it isn't loaded with extra calories. Now, this isn't just some casual endorsement. This stems from massive umbrella reviews, which are essentially giant reviews of hundreds of meta-analyses that concluded moderate coffee intake is overwhelmingly more beneficial than harmful across a huge range of health outcomes. The consensus has truly officially shifted from suspicion to active endorsement. Which brings us to exactly what coffee is protecting us from. Section 2, shield against major diseases, or what I like to call superpowered prevention. The sheer scope of coffee's impact is just incredible. It acts as a shield for almost every vital organ system you have. For the brain, it's linked to lower risks of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Metabolically, coffee drinkers see a massive 29% drop in the risk of type 2 diabetes. Add in a nearly 15% reduction in cardiovascular disease, plus fierce protection for your liver and kidneys, and you're looking at super-powered prevention in a mug. Now, to get highly specific for a moment, exactly 2.5 cups of coffee a day is the sweet spot. That's the amount linked to the absolute lowest possible risk for Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline. And hey, while we're on the topic of disease prevention, we need to firmly bust a historical myth right now. For a long time, people genuinely feared coffee caused cancer. This was all based on flawed studies back in the 1980s. Today, the World Health Organization and massive pooled analyses have completely cleared coffee. It is absolutely not carcinogenic. In fact, it actively reduces the risk of certain cancers, specifically liver and endometrial cancers. So we know it protects us, but how? Let's transition into Section 3, the biological mechanisms, to see how it actually works. Now, what's really interesting about this is how coffee acts as a sort of internal housekeeper. First off, it balances glucose levels. Studies show caffeinated coffee actually improves how our bodies handle sugar, fighting off diabetes. Second, it increases fat burning, especially if you have a cup before a workout. Third, it reduces low-grade cellular inflammation. Coffee drinkers literally have fewer inflammatory markers just floating around in their blood. And finally, and I love this one, because caffeine is structurally similar to asthma medication, it acts as a mild bronchodilator. It actively improves your airflow. And there's one more incredible biological mechanism, and is actually behavioral. On days people drink caffeinated coffee, they take an average of 1,000 more steps compared to days they don't. You naturally boost your physical activity without even thinking about it. This extra movement lowers body mass index and drastically lowers the risk of physical frailty, especially as we get older. Coffee literally keeps you moving. But here is the plot twist of this explainer. Section 4, additives and brewing methods. Basically, the fine print. Coffee in its natural state is fantastic, but how you prepare it can completely ruin its biological benefits. There is a stark night and day difference between black coffee and the sugary cafe drinks we so often treat ourselves to. Black coffee, or maybe coffee with just a splash of milk, is associated with weight management, robust neurodegenerative protection, and even a lower risk of depression. But When you heavily sweeten your coffee with syrups, heavy creams, and refined sugars, you completely counteract those metabolic perks. Actually, scratch that. You don't just counteract them. Data shows that highly sweetened coffee completely nullifies the protective effects and actively drives weight gain. Remember, the FDA's healthy label only applies if the drink has fewer than 5 calories per serving. And it's not just what you add to it. How you brew it matters immensely. Mayo Clinic data indicates that filtered coffee, like your standard drip machine, traps certain natural oils found in coffee beans. Unfiltered methods, however, like a French press or boiled coffee, let those oils slip right through into your cup. And those specific oils have been shown to cause slight elevations in your cholesterol levels. So if you are actively managing high cholesterol, filtered is definitively the way to go, for sure. Finally, we have to talk about the limits. Section 5, risks and safe limits. This isn't about saying coffee is bad, but rather about knowing your own personal biological boundaries and respecting how powerful this compound really is. The absolutely most critical limit established by health organizations is 200 milligrams of caffeine per day for women who are pregnant, planning to conceive, or breastfeeding. Why so strict? Well, because during pregnancy, your liver metabolism changes dramatically, which actually triples the half-life of caffeine in the body. It stays in the system much, much longer, and high doses can cross over to the developing fetus. To put that into perspective and give you a highly actionable takeaway, 200 milligrams of caffeine is roughly equal to 1 12-ounce cup of standard brewed coffee. So, if you fall into the pregnancy or breastfeeding category, limiting yourself to 1 standard mug a day is the established safe zone. For the general population, there are a few other guardrails we need to keep in mind. Heavy consumption, and we're talking 5 or more cups a day here, is linked to slightly lower bone density in some women, though making sure you eat calcium-rich foods can help counter that. We also just can't ignore the gut and the mind. High doses can trigger restlessness that perfectly mimics an anxiety attack, or it can seriously aggravate heartburn. And because caffeine lingers in your system for hours, that late-day coffee directly sabotages your sleep. Ultimately, you really have to personalize your intake. If you get jittery, you've hit your biological ceiling. So, what does this all mean? We arrive at the end of our explainer, and the science is incredibly clear. For most of us, coffee isn't a vice to feel guilty about at all. It is a protective, disease-fighting, longevity-boosting daily ritual, provided we respect the dosage and skip all that extra sugar. Knowing all of this about the incredible biology of the bean, how will you take your coffee tomorrow? Thanks for joining me, and keep feeding your curiosity.